From an outsider's perspective, it may look like this offseason has been a complete disaster for Earl Grant and the Boston College Eagles men's basketball program. But maybe, just maybe, good old Earl Grant is playing chess, not checkers.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am your host, AJ Black. I'm the editor and publisher of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. Thank you all for joining us. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Well, folks, basketball has been in the ruts since that loss to UNLV. We have seen some news that has gone bad. We're going to talk today about why I think there may be some good news coming down the pike. We're going to get into football and their transfer portal news because there's some things that could be percolating there. And we got to talk about women's lacrosse as they had one of their biggest wins of the season on Thursday. So let's kick this off with basketball today because I don't usually kick things off with basketball, but this is big. Now, BC has lost 6 players to the transfer portal. We lost Devin McLaughlin just the last a couple days ago, and it felt like the walls were crumbling around Boston College. You saw Mason Madsen, Jaden Zachary, Claudel Harris, Prince Aligby, Amarni Mighty, and McLaughlin all enter the portal. That's 6 out of your 12 guys that you had. You add in Quentin Post, and all of a sudden you're looking at your team going, are they going to even win an ACC game next year? You're starting to worry. They brought in some guys. They brought in Josh Beadle of Clemson, who, let's be honest, folks, I mean, maybe he has a high ceiling, but he averaged 3 points a game. That's not really something to get excited about. You brought in a kid from Chad Venning from St. Bonaventure Center. You know, I've heard mixed things about what he could do, but, you know, he's in need. And it just didn't seem like BC was going in the right direction. Well, news changed on Thursday afternoon as Shrewsbury, Massachusetts native and Duke 5-star recruit oh God, I just had a whole brain fart there for a second. TJ Power, God, I couldn't even think of his name. TJ Power entered the transfer portal. Now, Power, as I just said, a 5-star. This is a kid that was the number 14, I believe, recruit in the entire country, according to 247. He was the 17th best player. Number 4 power forward, a big-time talent, and someone BC was in on from the beginning. Now, what way could you kind of shake up things and get a big name in here that would do it? Now, to be honest, he didn't play all that much this year because Duke is stacked. When you have, all 4 and 5 stars, sometimes the better players are going to take the reins while the younger kids are sitting on the bench, and that's what happened. Power averaged, I think 5 minutes a game, and he averaged about 3 points per game. So if you're just looking at that, you got to go, AJ, who cares? You average 3 points per game. But you got to look deeper than that. This was the number 1 recruit from Massachusetts. This was a kid that had major offers all over the country. He's a legacy. I believe he's the same Power family that has the Power gym. He's got BC in his blood. And from sources that I have, I've been told that his parents near the end of the season were at a lot of BC games. So mark that down. I've heard from other people, Beacon Street Ball, who writes for me, that BC should be the team to go to land this kid. How big would that be? Now, you're going to have to bring him in. He's still a very sought after commodity. So you're going to have to pay him. You have to give him good NIL money. What if all of the things that we've seen, you've had a couple guys leave. Mason Matson, he went on his social media and he said it had nothing to do with Earl Grant. And the people who say that it is are don't know what they're talking about. His move was all family. We've heard that Jaden Zachary most likely wanted to be closer to home. Armani Mighty was never going to play. Prince Aligby had completely fallen off the cliff. He was going to go just try to reboot himself someplace else. Claudel Harris, I don't know what was going on there. But buzz has been maybe it's an NIL thing. He wants more money. And maybe that's the case. He's going to go find it everywhere else. With all this going on, what if BC is reallocating some of this funds? You know, you got your NIL money in the pool that you have. With Quinton Post gone, now you have more money that you can spend around and you can reallocate. You go for a guy like TJ Power, a local kid, a star from a local high school, and you bring him in. That would shatter the mold of in the what people think about Boston College, because BC for years, folks have always thought of them as the team that um, can never keep local kids here because there's other teams and other programs that are more attractive. Power, basically came down to BC and Duke, and he went with the blue blood, which was not a surprise. Things could change here. And I don't believe this is the only piece of good news that BC could land. The other name I would watch for, and I had this up on Eagle Insider for VIPs earlier yesterday, was that Amani Hansberry, the number 70 recruit in the country, who also had BC as a finalist, has entered the transfer portal as well. Now, I've heard BC's very interested, and I've heard they're pushing for him. He's a power forward. So he'd be another big. So you have a couple bigs here, with Power and him. He, again, was another kid that he's the number one recruit in the state of Maryland. Not utilized by Illinois at all. I think he played like 3 minutes per game, so his stats are kind of wonky. But if Earl Grant really feels like he can develop these kids, and he's shown that he can develop some bigs. I mean, Mighty didn't progress, but we saw it with Karnick. We saw it with Post. He credit when credit's due. He can do that, right? So he's another name. Maybe the BC can land him, but I've heard what WVU's the team to beat there. But if you land, let's say perfect world here for Boston College basketball. You land these two names, you bring them in, you get a guard, and Beacon Street Ball has also alluded that there may be another big name that they're going after. If they bring in a big guard, then you all of a sudden now have two really talented underclass big men. You have Chaz Kelly and DJ Hand, who you're hoping will develop. And you've brought in some other pieces. All of a sudden, this team that you thought was going to be left for dead may still be bad. They may still be. Who knows? But at least they'd be exciting. And at this point, I think that's all that matters, right? Like, you just don't want this team to be dead in the water. You don't want this team to be boring and uninteresting to watch. And if they can do this, you kind of feel like the program might be back on the right track. And so that's why I started this off by saying maybe Earl Grant knew if he went into next year with Claudel Harris as his leading scorer to go with Devin McLaughlin, that wasn't going to work. Then I've heard that they've been interested in Power before that, they obviously wanted him last year. Once Harris left, they had to kind of readjust what they're doing. Boom, you get where you're at right now. It's going to be something worth watching. I'm very close to putting a crystal ball on 247 for this. I'm not there yet. I will be probably soon. In a moment, I'm going to look at football as the transfer portal news has still not brought up any new names of exiting players, but I'm hearing a lot of buzz about players that they are interested in. I'll explain what positions BC's looking at and what you might want to expect to see if they're going to land a commitment. I'll get into all that in just a moment. If you know me, you know I am a competitive person. I love competing. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Passion, drive, and excellence. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance with superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is AJ Black, locked on Boston College, and we're this is like transfer portal central here. As both hockey, basketball, football, you name it, they're all into the transfer portal right now. As things are getting interesting. One place, as I said, that hasn't really seen the exodus that I kind of thought might happen has been the football team. Now that might be just a credit to Bill O'Brien, as he's kept the team intact. There hasn't been any players other than Joseph Griffin, which we've expected. And honestly, I don't think that's a Bill O'Brien thing. I think he had his foot out the door before that. But we've only lost one player, and then you had Charlie Goodinier and Hans Lillis, who are guys that left after Halfley left. But that BC still has a few spots available that they can hit up in the transfer portal. And if you're following all along on Twitter, you're seeing all the national guys. They'll post, this recruit has received, transfer has received offers from this guy, and this guy has heard from here and there. And you don't hear BC's name all that often. And part of that is, the national people usually just focus on the big names, right? The quarterback from Arizona State, obviously he's gonna, he just entered tonight. He's gonna get a lot of press, and some of those bigger names are just gonna catch the reader's attention. So they're not gonna get into the kind of guys that BC might go after. But if you're smart and you can follow the breadcrumbs, sometimes you get into a lead or two that kind of gives you an idea of maybe what BC is going after. And that breadcrumb came up on Wednesday evening as UCF safety Nikai Martinez posted a picture of him in Boston. Now, there could be two things here, right? So I'm not going to say definitively that BC is going after him, because yes, BC about any transfer, but right now they're pretty much under a lock and key. They're not saying anything. But this picture he put up in his Instagram story is almost like the exact clone of what Jordan McDonald from UCF did when he committed. So I think there may be smoke to the fire here. And the reason I also think that is there's another name, Antonio Cotman Jr., who's also in the transfer portal. Now, Cotman, well, he's a safety too. So what do you have here? You got Martinez, who has a lot of connections with BC because BC has basically become UCF North. You have Daryl Wyatt, who's done a lot of recruiting that's brought in, um, Ryan O'Keefe, Thomas Castellanos, and Jordan McDonald, the running back that came in this year. You have him there. You got Castellanos, who has been a cheerleader for a lot of these guys. And if you follow Nikai Martinez's Instagram, Thomas Castellanos is in a lot of it. He's very they seem close. So that's good. And it seems like it's a position of need, right? So that could be something that they're looking at. He had 3 interceptions for UCF last year and has good coverage grades. The one knock on him is his missed tackle numbers are concerning. But if you need depth at safety, he's a younger guy. He's played, but he's still younger. You can teach him, you can develop him. He might be a name. Cotman is the other name. He committed to Virginia Tech over BC. He committed to BC for a while. I believe he took his official visit. I think he was committed to BC in the class of 2023, and ended up bailing at the last second to stay home at Virginia Tech. I was kind of stunned when I heard BC still linked with him, but then I kind of thought also all the guys that he probably annoyed when he bailed off of BC are gone. So maybe there's guys there that just like him and want him there. But he was saying that I think he's interested in BC and a couple other smaller schools. So he, maybe he decided he wants to go back to where he thought he screwed up in the first place. And I'd love to see him because he's a very talented player. He's out of Life Christian Academy in Virginia. I thought he originally kind of stayed closer to home, combination of potentially NIL stuff and family things. So, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing safety right there, defensive back. And that raises the question as well. If they're looking at safety, is Cam Martinez coming? Now, as your Eagle insider, as someone who has access, I've asked. And every time I've asked about Cam Martinez, I get the same answer, which is nothing's changed, which is back to a couple months ago when they told me we're expecting him to still come here. We just have to finish up some things. I tend to understand that, but I also wonder with the change of staff, with Halfley gone, who was the guy that originally committed to, and I believe that's the second time Halfley's bailed on him because I think he committed to Ohio State when Halfley was the defensive coordinator. Then he bailed, Halfley bailed. Then he committed to BC to transfer here, and then Halfley bailed. So I can imagine he's a little gun shy, but maybe Bill O'Brien was able to fix that. Not sure. So there's something there, something to watch for, and it's been relatively quiet other than that. I just saw it. I'm still waiting for this shoe to drop. Like I feel like I'm being naive to think that BC is going to be, they're going to be excluded from all this transfer portal stuff. Like I think Bill O'Brien has done a nice job of probably establishing culture. But I am kind of almost half waiting for what happened to Houston, the University of Houston, to happen to them today, because Houston just lost, I think, 10 players today. And I'm like, when's that day going to come for BC? And it may not be 10 players, but 5. I just still think it's going to happen, but maybe it's not. Maybe BC is going to escape from this transfer portal nonsense with only losing Joseph Griffin. And that would be a great thing. And it would really show the cohesiveness in the culture that Bill O'Brien has created on campus. I mean, the fact that you got guys that know, and I believe he's done exit interviews, that they know they're going to be second and third stringers. They're like, yeah, I'll still stay here. That says a lot. So we'll have to wait and see if that's true. But right now we know that there's a few that position group is something, the safeties, that we'll have to keep an eye on. Now, in our final segment, a group that I have not talked a lot about, the women's lacrosse team. And I'm gonna jump in and tell you right now, I'm not the biggest stats guy or insider on women's lacrosse, but I love it. It's a fun game to watch, and they had a huge win on Thursday night. I'll explain who they beat and how they did it in just a moment. I have been going to baseball games. I'm a Woo Sox fan, but I also love the Red Sox. And now Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And then for future games, if you're a Red Sox fan, it just continues to go down as they continue to play the way that they're playing. But with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Because maybe you don't want to watch that Red Sox team. But for many of you guys, going to Fenway's an event. Going to watch the games there, enjoying the atmosphere, and you can get those tickets nice, cheap, and know exactly where you're sitting at game time. No getting stuck behind poles, no looking out at right field. You're going to get the seats you want, and you're going to get them at a good price. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Before we get in this last segment, folks, on Eagle Insider right now, up until the 22nd, we get a special deal. 50% off an Eagle Insider subscription. We just had BC Hockey Blogger break down the entire roster, where it's going to stand for next year. VIP subscribers get all those details. We have Mitch Wolf going into the linebacker position later on, diving into all the details there. You got me with the scoops on recruiting, transfers. You have Beacon Street Ball talking basketball. You're going to get a full season up until next year, every game covered for about a cup of coffee a month. If you have not subscribed, go over to Eagle Insider right now. I will put the link in the show notes. Make sure you hit that and subscribe today. I promise you, you'll enjoy it. Now, one team that I have not done a great job of covering this year is the women's lacrosse team. They're a team that has still been extraordinarily talented, even without Charlotte North and some of the players that have gotten to them the greatness in years past. But this team is still stacked. They've got some great women on this team with Belle Smith, Cassidy Weeks, Rachel Clark. They brought in transfers from UVA and Florida just this offseason to bolster up a team that's, again, shooting for another national championship. And on Thursday afternoon, BC was ready to play Syracuse, the number 2 team in the country, and a team that had not lost an ACC game. And BC, they had a neon out, which I love that they have themes. If you haven't been to a women's lacrosse game, they're very well attended, as they should be. They're a very good team. And this game, BC fell behind late. They stormed back, tied it, and then Cassidy Weeks scores in overtime to win it for the Eagles as they continue to own Syracuse. I see the fans of Syracuse getting so mad about this because BC women's lacrosse just like owns them. Just like BC hockey owns BU, BC women's lacrosse owns Syracuse. And that's so frustrating because they're like right on the edge of being like a national contender again. BC's always in their way. So Cassidy Weeks, she gets the big goal in this game. But you could talk about her making the clutch shot to win it. But you also have to talk about Shea Dolce with an incredible save just moments before. Remember, in lacrosse, it's golden goal. You score, you win, it's over. And she stopped a point-blank shot to save that game. So Shea Dolce deserves a big pat on the back, too, because that was an incredible save she made. And so right now, BC sits at 13-3, 7-2 in the ACC. And yeah, they're not steamrolling teams like they did with Charlotte North, but this team is deep. They've got a lot of talent from top to bottom, and I still would not rule them out from potentially winning the ACC. They could also win. They're going to be a contender to win the national title. They're going to have to play better. Overall, they've had some tough losses thrown in there. They've had 3 losses, but this team is still really, really good. And their next game is going to be the ACC tournament. It's already ACC tournament time for them. And that's going to be against Duke on the 24th at 8 p.m. on ACC Network. So you can check that out if you're interested. And I think you should be. If you like BC sports and you like excellence, you got to check them out because they're the best team on campus. So this is AJ Black. We'll be back again on Monday. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to talk about. We have baseball, we've got transfer portal stuff, we got roster news, everything in between. And then we're going to be getting into NFL draft talk. We're going to have Mitch on next week, who is diving into everything. This is like his Christmas and Easter wrapped into one. And he's going to want to talk to us all about Christian Mahogany and Elijah Jones and Kyle Hergel and some of these other guys. We'll get all that on our show next week. So hit that subscribe button before you leave. Like our podcast. And thank you all who listen every day. Some of you send me messages. I love you guys. We do this because I love BC sports, and I know you guys do too. So I appreciate all of you that have made this part of your daily routine. And if you haven't, shown this podcast to somebody else, love you to. If you have a friend that's like into BC sports, like, hey, check out AJ. He's this, loudmouth that talks about BC sports all the time. I'd love to get more followers, and I'd love you guys to help spread the word. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for making Locked On Boston College your team every day.